You're looking at a restaurant on your phone, not reading reviews. You've already decided. You're reading the menu, not because you haven't decided what to order, because you're running the math. The entree, a drink, maybe two, the 18% that adds itself automatically at the end. Whether this is a week that absorbs it, you confirm the reservation, you close the app. That calculation, the one that ran without your permission while you were deciding whether to go at all, has a cost that nobody counts. Not in dollars, in attention, in the portion of your mental life that goes to arithmetic that shouldn't require arithmetic. Every day, for as long as you can remember. What makes it stop, and why stopping is more significant than anything you'll ever buy when it does. That's the only thing this video is actually about. There's a posture that people in financial precarity learn to hold. Not dramatized, not discussed, just sustained. You develop a way of agreeing to restaurants without checking the menu first. You learn which social plans don't end in a bill. You find a register for declining things that sounds like preference rather than constraint. Not feeling drinks tonight, trying to eat in more. Don't need anything, but thank you. None of these are lies exactly, but they're not the full story. What they are is performance. The constant, low-grade performance of someone managing more than they're showing, translating real constraints into social language that doesn't invite follow-up questions. In 2013, researchers at Princeton and Harvard published a paper on the cognitive cost of financial precarity. The mental bandwidth consumed by scarcity, they found, reduces effective cognitive capacity by roughly the same margin as losing a full night's sleep, except it doesn't stop after one night. It's structural. You don't need the paper to know the paper. You can feel the math running alongside the conversation. The account check at 11:47 before you confirm a plan. The way a car repair doesn't just cost money, it costs the week of anxiety before and the week of recovery after. This is the performance of solvency, and the thing most people don't realize is that they are doing it. It's so continuous, so present from the beginning, that it registers as ordinary thinking rather than as a tax. The first level of wealth that actually changes your life is not the one where you can buy something you couldn't before. It's the first time the calculation doesn't run. There's a math problem that repeats for most people trying to do the right things across an entire decade. The raise arrives, the automatic transfer gets set up, the budget gets optimized. You do everything the financial advice told you to do, and the gap between what you earn and what remains at the end of each month stays roughly the same. This is not a personal failure. It's a documented pattern. As income increases, spending expands to absorb it, not recklessly, just proportionally. The apartment becomes appropriate for the new income. The car makes sense now. The grocery run calibrates upward. None of it feels like a decision. All of it is one. The delta, the margin between what arrives and what stays, remains thin. Everything that wealth is supposed to build has to live inside that thin margin, accumulating at a pace that's correct and slower than you felt it would be, while life events that don't care about the math keep arriving on their own schedule. The performance of solvency doesn't end when you start doing the right things. It barely changes. It just becomes better rehearsed. And then, for some people, something shifts, not in the account, in the background. There's a moment. For people who keep going, when something works without effort, it isn't dramatic. You don't notice it the first time. You notice it the third or fourth time, when you realize that an automatic transfer moved, a recurring charge cleared, a small obligation resolved itself, and you had no particular feeling about it. You hadn't checked before. You hadn't calculated whether this was a week that worked. It simply happened. This is smaller than it sounds, and larger than anything you've purchased, because the restaurant calculation is not primarily about money. It's about attention, and the first thing that runs automatically without your involvement is evidence in your own experience that the attention can go somewhere else. Most people remember this moment. It doesn't have a name. It just feels briefly like the room got quieter without anything changing. There's a threshold nobody warns you about because the people on one side of it don't know they've crossed it. Before it, your financial decisions are shaped by constraint. You take the job because of what it pays. You go to the bachelorette weekend because not going costs more than the flight. You participate in the financial texture of other people's lives because abstaining has consequences you can't fully absorb after it. You begin to say no to things that don't make sense to you, and you discover that saying no produces friction you didn't anticipate. The wedding you decline. The group expense you opt out of. The opportunity from a friend whose judgment doesn't match yours. These are rational decisions made from genuine choice. They're also decisions that change how people read you, not because you've announced anything, but because your behavior has shifted in a way that's hard to conceal and harder to explain. Some relationships get easier, some get harder. A few simply stop, without either person understanding exactly why. The friction isn't really about the money. It's about the distance between who you were when those relationships were built and who your choices now suggest you've become. Nobody tells you this is coming, and there's no clean way through it. At some point, if you keep going through the thin delta, through the patience, through the friction, something changes. Not in your account, in the background. You go to a restaurant, you confirm the reservation, you close the app, and somewhere between confirming and walking through the door, you notice that the calculation didn't run. Not that it ran and produced an acceptable answer, that it didn't run. You try to remember when that started. You can't locate it. It wasn't a day or a decision or a specific number. It was a gradient, a slow withdrawal of something so continuous you'd stopped experiencing it as separate from ordinary thought. People who cross this threshold describe something they struggle to name. It isn't happiness exactly. It isn't security in the conventional sense. It's closer to the absence of a sound they'd stopped hearing because it had always been there. This is what money buys at the levels that actually change how you live. Not things, not experiences, the subtraction of something. The people who finally stop performing rarely know when it happened. They notice it the way you notice a low hum has stopped, only in the silence. What they were missing wasn't happiness. It was permission to stop translating. The performance of appearing fine when the math is tighter than you're showing. The performance of preference when the real answer is constraint. The performance that runs underneath every decision involving money, from the first time you calibrated a social life around a budget you never mentioned, to the last time you did it without noticing you'd stopped. What you spend before the spending is purely voluntary, never appears on any statement. Go back to the restaurant. There's a menu on your phone. At every level of wealth you've ever lived, that menu has looked the same. Same type of evening. Same people across the table, same general shape of a night out. What was different was what was running underneath it. At one level, the menu was a calculation. At another, it was a performance. At another, it was just a menu. The wealth didn't change the evening. It changed what the evening cost. Not in dollars, but in the attention that runs alongside everything you do, every day, quietly determining which choices are actually yours and which ones were already made for you by arithmetic. The math is still running for someone tonight, in the background, alongside the conversation, on the other side of the menu. The only question is whether it's running for you.